Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Tuesday, February the 11th, Middlesex County Council meeting. At this time, I believe Councillor DeViet is joining us online. Can you hear us all right, Ina? Okay. And I want to welcome Mr. Manders back once again, filling in from Luke and Badolf. Welcome, Dave. I had the opportunity to go to Norterra and their addition. They had a large addition, and it was in Strathroy Caradoc, and Councillor Grantham, the mayor of Strathroy, gave a very good speech on that. And it was a 94,000 square foot renovation, or pardon me, new build that they've increased their storage capacity and their freezing capacity. And it's pretty exciting that it's nice to see some growth within these businesses, and just wanted to make comment to that. At this time, I would ask our clerk to do the acknowledgement.
We acknowledge that the land we stand upon today is the traditional territory of the Attawandaron, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Lenapehouk peoples, who have long-standing relationships to the land, water, and region of southwestern Ontario. The local First Nation communities of this area include Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames First Nation, and Munsee Delaware Nation. We acknowledge the treaties that are specific to this area: Treaty 2, McKee Purchase; Treaty 3, Between the Lakes Purchase; Treaty 6, London Township Purchase; Treaty 21, Longwoods Purchase; and Treaty 29, Huron Tract Purchase. We value the significant contributions, both in the past and the present, of local and regional First Nations of Turtle Island. We acknowledge historic and ongoing injustices that Indigenous people endure in Canada, and we affirm our commitment to honoring Indigenous voices, nations, and cultures, and to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect.
Thank you. At this time, I would ask if there any disclosure of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, adoption of the minutes for January 14th council meeting. Oh, we need approval of the agenda. Moved by Councillor Schmeibert, seconded by Councillor Brennan. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Adoption of the minutes and recommendations of the committee of the whole. Minutes from January 14th. Closed session minutes from January 14th, and the minutes of the January 14th special meeting of County Council. Any business arising? Mr. Ayers? Seeing none, we need a motion to accept. Councillor Grantham, Councillor McMillan, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. New business action items, 5A1, and I believe that is for the county, Middlesex County Loan Program. Who's going to speak to that? Josh, are you speaking? Okay.
Good afternoon. Through the warden to council. Council provided staff direction to consider an application from the municipality of North Middlesex through the county loan program for the already completed Park Hill Fire and Paramedic Station, even though it only met the former and not current loan program requirements. The application was received by the county on December 9th. Working with the municipality, relevant financial information was reviewed, including financial statements, as well as the municipality's ability to take on further debt. County staff has determined that we can recommend the loan application be approved. As requested by council, the loan agreement in a form drafted by the county's barrister and solicitor is attached to the report. At this time, the deputy CAO and treasurer, as well as myself, would be happy to answer questions that council may have.
Thank you. Questions or comments from council? No questions? At this time, we have a motion in front of us. We've got it on the screen. Yes. Moved by Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor McGuire. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Inquiries. Any inquiries this time? Councillor Clark?
Yes, I'd like to ask for a staff report outlining the county's vacation policy, vacation accruals, and any outstanding balances.
Okay. Who wants to speak to that? Do we need to speak to that at this time?
thanks through the warden to the counselor. Administration can take that request and we can come back to county council with a report.
Okay. Any other inquiries? Seeing none, notice of motion. Councilors' comments and other business. Seeing none, we need a motion to go into committee of a whole. The whole at 1:05. Moved by Councillor Mayhew, second by Councillor McMillan. All in favor? Carried. Delegations, we have none. Report from county officers, and I think 9B1 Economic Development and Tourism for 2024 year in review. Go ahead, Shara.
Thank you, Warden. Through you to the council, we wanted to take this opportunity from our department to deliver some news on a review looking back at 2024 and some highlights for you to consider. So first and foremost, in 2024, Middlesex County experienced significant economic growth and community development. Grand opening of a number of major employers took place, as well as a number of expansions. This first slide outlines for you some of the growth that's taken place in our communities over the course of the last year. Between 2023 and 2024, we saw an overall growth in jobs of 800 throughout the county of Middlesex. The exciting thing to note here is that there was growth in every single one of our municipalities during that time, and that growth exceeds that of the provincial average. In addition to that, we also saw a growth of nearly 600 businesses in Middlesex County over that same period of time. An emphasis on the fact that not only are we seeing expansion within the business community, we're also seeing new investment as well. The Economic Development and Tourism Department was able to ascertain approximately $117,000 in grant funding, representing just over 11% of its annual budget in the last year. This work allowed us to do a number of things and special projects that would not otherwise be allowed under the normal funding model. In terms of foreign direct investment, there was an engagement in a total of 228 meetings. This is divided among 38 one-on-one meetings that were collectively held by Middlesex County together with foreign direct investors, specifically looking at Middlesex as a strategic location. In addition to that, among our work with our other groups and our collaborations, including OMCA, and our group that is for Ontario Food Cluster, we had a total of 190 meetings held. In terms of engagement, I'm really happy to deliver these statistics for you. In terms of the number of followers across the pages that are managed by our department, we've seen a 21% increase in followers. We're up to now 10,592. In terms of post shares, we've actually seen a 73.5% increase over that number since 2023. And we've had a 103% increase in the number of reactions to the post, indicating that people are in fact interacting with the information that we are portraying. In terms of our community improvement plan, as you know, at the county level, we are unable to have a community improvement plan that would provide incentives to our businesses directly. What we are able to do is to support the efforts of the local municipalities. And we're so proud of the fact that we now have 7 of 8 municipalities in Middlesex County with active community improvement plans. Our department works directly with your staff in order to provide some reimbursement of those incentives. And so this year we provided $62,400 for 23 CIP investment projects. And among those, we have seen a return on investment of $735,000, a 10.8% return on the county's investment. In terms of tourism initiative sponsorship, we are able to partner together with tourism organizers throughout your communities And we sponsored a total of 10 events this year, and we're happy to report that over 30,000 visitors attended those events over the course of 2024. The return on investment of county dollars was 8.3%. In terms of community engagement, in 2024, our department offered 180 marketing supports. We promoted 90 tourism events, and we hosted 3 familiarization tours with businesses across our county. In terms of local municipal engagement, you may remember that we have now implemented a contact management system in our department that is tracking our communications, not only with industry, but also with our local municipalities, not including the communications that would take place on the telephone or on cell phones, as we're unable to track that interaction. We logged 2,720 tracked communications with local municipal staff or elected officials in 2024. And we held 172 meetings with those groups. In terms of sector investment highlights, there's a couple of ones that we certainly want to be to the forefront and that you've heard about over the course of the year. And we're exceptionally proud of the collaboration and the work that's been done by local municipalities in terms of bringing these investments to the finish line. Ontario Plants has now located in Glencoe in Southwest Middlesex, bringing a $75 million investment with phase 1, 13 acres of greenhouse under glass with phased expansions of 3 to follow. This has created 45 jobs and each phase is expected to bring the same. I was able to meet with the Chief Officer for Finance of Ontario Plants last week, and he has now declared that facility to be the most state-of-the-art agricultural facility of its kind in North America. Norbeck, a $45 million investment, bringing 70 employees to Strathroy-Caradoc, is now located with their phase 1 being 156,000 square foot of industrial space, providing industrial refrigeration panels for both grocery as well as commercial and industrial applications. Extremely proud of both of these investments and congratulate those local municipalities, their staff, and their elected officials on being able to solidify these investments. We've also had considerable growth in commercial investments. Notable new commercial investments include a brand new No Frills in Thames Centre, Tito's Pizza franchise and new stores in the shops in Sydenham and Strathroy-Caradoc, and of course, the Glen Shopping Centre Plaza in Lucan, anchored by Foodlands, McDonald's, Pet Value, Dollarama. Additionally, long-standing agribusinesses announced considerable new investments, including Chronican's Orchards, new cidery, and I'd also be remiss to not mention the expansion of Dortmund's and others such as Whitecrest Innovations in the past year. In terms of infrastructure and development, 2024 was an exciting year. We're very thrilled to see the changes that are taking place with respect to the county's infrastructure loan program being adapted for industrial servicing. And our department has been collaborating with local municipalities and upper level governments to initiate industrial developments, which will notably come to the council for decisions. In terms of our industrial tax revenue, it has grown. And we've seen that shift from just under 1.4 million in 2023 to just over 1.5 million in 2024. Our department, of course, produces a number of publications, one of which is on your table today, the brand new Invest in Middlesex Guide. But throughout the year, there are a number of publications that go on both the investment as well as on the tourism side of things. These reach audiences across Canada and the US, showcasing the region's unique offerings along with investment attraction. And I'm very pleased to tell you that this year, among others, has been another one for award-winning publications out of our department. So I'm very pleased to tell you that this year Middlesex received 3 platinum and gold awards in the International Hermes Creative Marketing Competition. I would note this competition is not one that is aligned with economic development. This actually is a creative marketing award that is international in nature and goes across all sectors. So it's quite a recognition for our staff who produce all of these publications in-house. We also are very proud of our Making It in Middlesex series. This video production highlights different companies throughout our communities in Middlesex County and proves to be an exceptional tool for offering business appreciation and retention, as well as supporting the expansion of many different businesses across all sectors. This year was also a very busy one in terms of strategy development for the department. 4 key strategic documents were developed under the county's Economic Development Department in 2024. These include a brand new foreign direct investment strategy, which I'm very happy to say aligned with and received funding through Global Affairs Canada. We also developed our first ever commercial investment strategy, and that I'm happy to say as well was funded through partnership with the Ministry of Rural Affairs. Also, together with our partners in the planning department, we created the Tourism Investment Toolkit. Again, this document was done in partnership with one of our ministries. In this case, the Ministry of Culture, Tourism and Gaming provided funding for that project, which is already being utilized. And as many of you know, we were in receipt of an invitation from the ministry to attend the Dragon's Den investment for tourism in Toronto in November. Also to be mentioned, of course, is the Middlesex County Economic Development Corporation strategy, which informed the 2025 budget and we'll be speaking to today. In terms of workforce development, our department also was able to solicit funding through the ministry to be able to develop a brand new Work in Middlesex website. It was revamped and now hosts a job matching portal, which I'm hearing wonderful things about by our partners in workforce development, including those that we work with at Community Employment Choices, who use this as a frontline tool for being able to match local employers with local available labor force. This summarizes things, but I would like to do a congratulations and a shout out to our staff, which includes Dimitri Makrakos, our Economic Development Officer, Paul Napickett, who has come back to our department as our tourism officer, and Kelly Hunt, who works diligently in our department doing administration and coordination for both economic development and tourism. So my thanks to them, my thanks to council, and I'm happy to deliver this report for your information today and any questions.
Thank you, Kara. Questions, comments for Kara? Go ahead, Councillor Mayhew. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Councillor Manders, sorry.
Are you satisfied with the supply of industrial land available within the Middlesex County, or does that concern you at all in the future? Or when it does, is that something you'll talk to each municipality about?
Through you, Chair, certainly that discussion has been brought up several times this year and forms a part of the discussions for the 2025 budget. It is one of the biggest issues that we have. We are very well strategically placed. However, we lack available industrial service land. And so we are working with our municipalities trying to utilize the revamped county loan program for that regard, but also working with a number of municipalities specifically on some strategic projects, which will bring more of that land to market.
Thank you. Other questions? Comments? No? Councillor Brennan?
Are we seeing a huge demand for companies looking for places to move to into Middlesex, like mid-sized companies? Is there a demand there?
Through you, Warden, I think that's an interesting comment, Councillor Brennan, because just having come back from the EDCO conference last week and having a conversation with the manufacturing consortium. It's an interesting statistic, and it was one that was missed many times by people in the room, that when you look at manufacturing in particular, the percentage of manufacturing in Canada, which is more than 500 employees, is 0.6%. Most of the investment that we are going to be looking at now and in the long-term future is going to be that small to mid-size. The demand at this point is always there in terms of companies showing interest. Obviously, you know, it's a long game in terms of them showing interest. The Norbeck situation, Ontario plants are good examples of that, where those came online during COVID and have taken years to solidify those investments. So the demand we see now is the demand for, you know, a few years from now. We see a lot of demand, and I think that it would be echoed around what you're seeing in your local municipalities for the expansion of our existing operations. Good example being Norterra, being able to bring their investment to light by utilizing available lands in Strathroy-Caradoc. So there's always a combination of demand. It's not an easy, you know, answer to say there's a lot, because it will be relative to what's available. And it's got to be the right match. So to the councillor's question about available industrial land, it's a bit of a chicken and egg, and we have to balance that available supply with what is coming on side. But there is always interest. We are constantly having those conversations. As you saw, you know, we had 30 some meetings directly with investors just this year, specifically looking at Middlesex County.
Any other questions this time? No other questions in that report. We need a motion to accept that for information. Moved by Councillor Mayhew, seconded by Councillor Grantham. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Our next item is, once again, Kara, and that is on your budget presentation.
Well, thank you very much, Warden. As you know, economic development and the direction of the service delivery for 2025 has been brought to the attention of council over the course of the 2024 year looking forward. And considerable work has been done in this regard. And as I will not be present for the reading of the budget next week, I am here to specifically address questions that may have come about with respect to the service delivery for economic development and the path forward with respect to the 2025 budget. So as I know, you have all of the information that's been presented to the budget committee. We have had considerable conversations around that table. And what I'm going to bring to you today is a summary of that, but certainly open to any conversation or questions that you may have. So in terms of key considerations and economic development pressures, one of the first things that we talk about is the demographic shift. We have been very blessed in Middlesex County by the growth that we have experienced with respect to residential development. And I can remember a time when that was not the situation in Middlesex. And we put our focus on trying to bring that to light, and we've been successful in that regard. That shift, however, has resulted in a 15.8% increase from 2016 to 2023. And the expectation of growth between 2023 and 2031 is over 20% for our communities. In terms of employment, we've already spoke to the fact that over the course of the last couple of years, we've seen considerable growth in employment as well. That growth is 4% higher across the board in Middlesex County than the provincial average. So although we had some differentiation between municipalities with some as low as around 3%, we've seen some considerably to the high end of that, making that overall average 4% higher than the provincial expectation. In terms of the labor force, however, there is an important trend that we need to look at, and that is the fact that the prime labor force in Middlesex County is and London surrounding area is up around 13% since 2020 and represents 42% of the population. But here's the interesting statistic is that the population coming in behind that 0 to 24 represents only 29% of the population and is growing at only 6.7%. This means workforce development and our role in economic development cannot simply sit idly back and watch this go on. We are going to be competing with our neighbors for labor force, and we need to put emphasis on that demand. We're at a very interesting precipice of time. So when we wrote the budget committee notes in October of this past year in preparation, we were in a little bit of a different situation than we're in today. So what this is determined, and if you were to read the economic papers by banks such as Toronto Dominion, they would be talking about this post-pandemic slump. This reaction that is created by stimulus that happens when you have a pandemic or some other situation creates this sort of false narrative in terms of what's available to business and how they are able to recover. They sort of go into this recovery phase and then they go into their renewal phase, right? Which is sort of a new way of being. With the tariff threats and conversations that are happening right now, we're at this interesting interchange where we may very well see the expectation of industry and the reaction of government to have to go from that renewal right back into the recovery phase. So it's something we have to be aware of. And as government, we need to be heightened in terms of our awareness of what our industry may require of us in order to respond. Of course, at the moment, the only certainty we have is uncertainty given the situations, but we're monitoring those, as are all of our industry partners and agencies. In terms of the service demands, the Economic Development Department is under-resourced by comparison to other municipalities and other economic development corporations. We have a really important role to play, and we play it in terms of supporting our member municipalities with business appreciation, retention and expansion, domestic and foreign investment attraction, workforce attraction and development, and sector development, including our role as the destination marketing organization for tourism for the region. We've also talked, and council members have asked regarding industrial attraction. The reality is that despite the wins that we have had in Middlesex County, there's nearly $15 billion in new industrial investment that has been announced in the last 3 years within 2-hour radius of Middlesex County. We have an opportunity in that if you were to look at the tax rate we have less than 3% of the Middlesex County tax levy being realized through industrial tax. And we're at an interesting time as we've come to the end of our economic development strategic plan, in concert with the county itself coming to the end of its strategic plan. The economic development strategic plan is that opportunity for us to redevelop as it was developed in the COVID pandemic and has served us well for the last 5 years, but it's time for a direction. So shifting to key considerations with respect to opportunities. Number one is that Middlesex County is in an excellent situation with respect to the relationship it has built, not only with its local partners, but also with its regional counterparts. We have the opportunity to advance our investment attraction, our sector development, workforce, and small business support by working alongside our partners. In terms of business expansion, we've spoke to this briefly as well. The county's economic development relies very heavily on its ability to consult with and respond to the needs of existing business across all sectors, including agriculture, manufacturing, tourism, and entrepreneurship. And in terms of industrial land development, Middlesex County no doubt offers a strategic location and some of the highest potential for industrial investment in this province. This development holds the key to the tax diversification capable of sustaining the future economic health of our communities. In terms of funding and projects, the Department of Economic Development has a long and successful history of funding acquisition. As you saw, we were able to leverage our funding to create and be able to deliver on 4 strategic projects this year with respect to strategic plans. And also we've had a long-standing history of being able to work with the province on workforce development as well. We are at an opportune time to be able to take advantage of additional funding in order to leverage and address community and industry needs. The formal establishment of the Middlesex County Economic Development Corporation has been a big topic of conversation this year. And to help address identified pressures and to capitalize on these opportunities, Council went into an extensive third-party consultation process in 2024 to determine the best approach to delivering our economic development services in Middlesex County. The resulting recommendations were presented to County Council last fall in the Middlesex County Economic Development Corporation strategy, and they are represented in the 2025 budget summary scenarios that have been presented to the committee. So there are in fact 2 scenarios that were presented to the county's budget committee over the course of the last few months. I want to express that each scenario and each budget is completely independent of the other and does not rely on the other. There is no duplication. There is no sense of one being an additional cost on top of the other. They are very separate and apart. The first scenario is capacity building of the internal departments. Okay. This particular scenario is immediate implementation and includes additional staffing capacity, including an additional economic development officer, a marketing and communications coordinator, and sector-specific summer students focused on economic development and tourism explicitly. It also includes a strategic plan update. Right? And so that budget is summarized for you. And this budget meets with the parameters set by the Budget Committee for 2025, which will be presented to Council next week. As I've said, the focus of this scenario is on capacity building of the existing internal municipal department service delivery model. The second scenario, again, independent of the other, is that for the implementation of the Economic Development Corporation. This scenario as well meets the parameters set by Budget Committee for 2025. But the focus is on a new delivery model with service enhancements. This particular situation is a 9-month phased implementation, allowing for a business plan to be developed and presented to County Council to bring about comfort that will directly report to the council on a regular basis with KPIs in place to ensure comfort and to ensure transparency. This scenario includes the staff capacity increases similar to that of the internal department scenario. It also includes service enhancement through revenue generation over and above the county contribution. As noted, it includes a business plan and it includes county funding consistent for 3 years. In terms of overall findings and recommendations through the process that we have gone through, both with the consultants' recommendations as well as conversations with Budget Committee. The recommendation to boost capacity and adopt a new service delivery model through the formalization of the Middlesex EDC was ascertained through engagement with industry, business, and economic development support agencies, upper level government, and all Middlesex member municipalities. Benefits realized through this new way of doing things would include coordinated service, with the EDC serving as a centralized economic development service, allowing Middlesex to present an organized approach to attracting and growing businesses and lessening missed opportunities. It would include resource enhancement. The reality is municipal governments are limited in the funding that they can access and distribute with respect to economic development. The EDC structure would allow it to utilize funding over and above that which is available to government. This would result in additional resources to effectively champion the strategic advantages of Middlesex and attract greater investment to our municipalities. In terms of that competition for investment, an EDC would develop a more robust and innovative strategy and incentive to compete with established EDCs, both domestically and internationally. Partnership and collaboration are at the crux of this suggestion. As a central body, the EDC will bolster partnership opportunities to bring industry, agencies, and municipalities together, increasing their own capacity to drive economic growth. And this model provides a cost saving as well as tailored support. The EDC will have the means to secure and provide tailored support over and above the set contributions from county to assist with specialized short-term projects, a major resource and cost savings to local municipalities with unique values and needs. Ultimately, an economic development corporation will only be as good as the KPIs that are set. Those key performance indicators will be what the EDC is measured upon. And ultimately, that goal is a more diversified tax base for Middlesex.
Thank you, Kara. Questions on this, because I believe this is the one department that the biggest potential change would happen, certainly in the county in 25, if that's the wish of council. So I think if you have any questions, now is the time. Councillor Grantham first.
I certainly agree. We need more economic development. You've heard me espouse that at different forums, but the one thing that I find missing from the report is the 2024 budget. I need that so I could have a comparator, Warden, so I know how much things are going up. Like I'm looking at and I assume on the revenue line, the MC contribution operating, that's the Middlesex County operating contributions. It would be helpful to me, Warden, to know what that increase may be in making my decision. And I haven't made a decision yet. I just have a number of questions. That would be helpful to me, Warden, to know what the 2024 budget looked like and maybe even 2023. And then in terms of KPIs, Warden, I was looking at, and just so you know where my mind's going in making the decision, I'll get to the chart there that in 3 years, it looks like our revenue, industrial tax revenue increased by $300,000, if I'm correct, right? And that represents 3%. So part of my decision, Warden and Carol, will be, what's the ROI? Like I need to figure out in making my decision, what's our return going to be for the increased revenues? I need to see those numbers so I can understand, because it's a lot of dollars to spend when over 3 years we've increased the tax base by $300,000. So I just need to understand that. I don't know if you or Cindy could help me with those when we have to make the decision. If I have those numbers, Warden, then I can make a more wholesome decision. And then indulge me, my last question. So when you say centralized, and I'll put on my bias and let you know, I think in Strathroy Caradoc, they have a very robust economic development. So is the recommendation to remove those from the municipality? So I will get asked that question, Kara, so I need to ask it. Thank you, Warden.
Go ahead, Kara.
Absolutely. Through you, Warden. Thank you for the questions, Counselor. First of all, to give you some solace with respect to the budgetary history, it is provided, Counselor Grantham. However, it's in the full package that was attached to the council agenda, and it is on page 96. It was not in the summation on the screen, but it is in the full package on 96. Both the 2023 as well as 2024 to date, and the 2024 budget are included. Okay.
Apologize, I missed that somehow.
Not a problem.
I've been
whatsoever.
scrolling and looking for something.
I appreciate that. There's only so much we could put up on the screen, but I do appreciate that you asked the question. Your second question was with respect to, remind me again, Councillor Grantham, your second question?
I'm sorry, the future role of municipal economic development.
Absolutely. So, the EDC formation does not assume that there will be a roll-up of any local municipal economic development function. This is set to be a support mechanism to allow more collaboration among those. We have an exceptional relationship, and your local municipalities do an incredible job with what they can in terms of being able to focus their efforts on the local matters at hand. I like to say, we can bring opportunity sometimes, but we can't take it to the finish line as an upper tier municipality. So that relationship is imperative. A lot of the question that we were asked with respect to the engagement practice that we went through in determining service delivery was not only for local staff members, which some have economic development practitioners and some do not. It went further. Many of your local municipalities have now created economic development committees. Those committees have an interest in coming together as well and being part of a roundtable and knowing what's happening throughout the county. And so this includes that as well. So this is a support organization to provide more service. There are also municipalities, many of all different sizes, some with staff, some without, who require the extra, effort from time to time with respect to a local project. This type of service delivery model allows for that to happen over and above the county contribution to a generalized service that would be available for all. So there's a little bit more nimbleness, a little bit more flexibility that is allowed in this type of system than what you would see in a traditional municipal internal department model. And then your last question.
I think I had it and I apologize. I did find the relevant slide, so apologies.
No, not at all. So the last question was with respect to KPIs and in terms of industrial tax revenue. And I think this is an important thing for the council to know is that this would be a direction. This is not, we don't flip the switch and tomorrow we're an economic development corporation. There is work to be done. There is a business plan to go through. There is a SWOT analysis that needs to be compiled. There is an implementation of 9 months that was built into the budget where we continue as an internal department as we're making that transition. We're bringing information back to council and we're allowing council to set those KPIs that they feel are most in line with the strategic direction of the county. And that may very well include looking at putting a percentage on that industrial tax.
Okay, other questions? Counselor McMillan and then Counselor Mayhew.
Through you to the director, I thank you so much for the report. They're pretty comprehensive. I think some of the points that I was going to make have already been addressed by Councillor Granson's questions. Mine are not so much questions, but there's some things that I think that we as council should consider going forward. If one of them is the governance structure. So I think that's very important for us to know just exactly how is that going to look, what the roles and responsibilities will be. One other question that I did have though specifically was, as Councillor Grantham mentioned, we do have staff in some of the municipalities already. And then, of course, we have our economic development department. So if we were to go down the route of an economic development corporation, would that mean that the current department is disbanded? Would it? And if that's the case, what happens to those employees? And we mentioned the strategic plan because part of a good business case is aligning with the strategic plan. So we're, as a county, going to be starting that process. So I think there should be an emphasis on alignment with that. Also, location. Where exactly will you be located? How cost effective will that be? Will it be in a more centralized location or will it be in the new building, whatever? I think that these are just some general things. I'm certainly not opposed to an economic development corporation. Before I want to sign on the dotted line, I want to make sure that we know exactly what we're facing as we get towards the end. So like I said, it's not specific questions that need to be answered today, but they're just thoughts that have been having. Thank you.
Okay, Kara.
Sorry about that. Through you, Warden. Thank you very much for the questions and comments. Council member. With respect to governance, again, I think this is a really, really important thing that needs to be known by council. This council would have every authority in terms of setting up the governance structure of the EDC. This is a strategic move of council in terms of improving service delivery. So it is completely within the realm of this council to be able to set up a governance structure that they are comfortable with and they feel gives them the authority that they require through any process to be able to feel comfortable with decisions. So that's number one, and that would be part of the business planning process. In terms of staffing, staff are very well aware of these notions being come to council and having been deliberated on. I think that obviously there are conversations to be had. However, this is an exceptional time. We have a fairly new staff as opposed to the director. In terms of their interest in looking at the transition, seeing what is going to be possible. So is it an end to the internal department? Yes, it is a transition out of the internal department and into a new governance structure and corporation. In terms of the strategic plan, there is absolutely a need for alignment. And again, this speaks to the timing of this proposal coming forward, is that we do have the opportunity to very closely align the strategic objectives of the council as a whole in terms of the county with those of an economic development corporation. So exceptional comment, and certainly something that needs to be there in terms of them aligning. And in terms of a location, again, part of the business planning process, no determined location whatsoever. And we actually had a really good conversation around this at budget. And the idea would be that we would go out to proposal for that. So we would actually have, and not to throw Josh into the mix, he's not in the room anymore, but we would involve a procurement so that there is a fair process to determining what would be the best approach and the most cost-effective approach with respect to locating this.
Go ahead, follow up first.
Will there be the same emphasis on tourism as there is right now?
So I think through you, Warden, to the council member, the emphasis on tourism right now would be somewhat diminished in the fact that we are looking at bringing in additional economic development staffing. And so that programming level shifts a little bit. We're still proposing to act as the destination marketing organization. We do not have another organization in Middlesex County to take upon that. A question did arise in the budget process with respect to the percentage. We're probably sitting in the new framework around 25% of the emphasis that is placed on tourism versus on economic development pursuits. That being said, of course, there is correlation. Tourism is a very active part. In fact, it's one of the most growing industries in Middlesex County, and we certainly don't want to overlook its emphasis with respect to the economic benefit it brings to our community. So there certainly is still a role there.
Okay. Councillor Mayhew.
Thank you, Chair. I've heard it stated in the past that an EDC is somewhat of a leap of faith for municipalities. And perhaps I shared that same opinion at one time, but I am warming up to an EDC. I have brought business to my municipality in the past. And we have a very good economic development committee. It has engineers on it. It has agri-specialists on it. It has marketing specialists on it. And it also has people with some sizable business background. But I found that there comes a point in the economic development process that I'm over my head and I need a higher level of expertise. And in the past, our staff may have lacked that higher level of expertise, and CARES department has that. And I would be supportive of an EDC. It has been suggested in previous conversations at the Horseshoe today that we do not want to be left out of the process, and I have every assurance that Kara does and has worked with municipal representatives and municipal staff. And I hear nothing but good things. But just to kind of dot the I on the moment at the microphone, that I'm the meet and greet guy. I've got my ear to the ground, and I can smell money come to my municipality. But as I say, I'm limited in my knowledge and expertise And there's times that every opportunity or every inquiry should be handed over to a higher level than myself or my staff or my counselors. And I would be supportive of an EDC, and those are my reasons why. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. I don't know if you want to respond to that, Kara, but I think it was just a vote of encouragement. And well said. Counselor Smibert, you had a question or comment?
Yes, probably more a comment than it is a question. I support the establishment of an economic development corporation through the feasibility study. They've informed us that our stakeholders are expecting something different. They want more measures in terms of, you know, getting us over that finish line. I think we can't afford to sit back and wait for industrial development to happen. I think we need to be more strategic. We need more resources in order to do that. So I fully support that. I think for me though, it was always, but how? Like, I support the corporation, but how do we do that? And I just want to make sure, and I think I've heard it through the messaging this afternoon, that there'll be an implementation plan, that council will be involved, that there'll be kind of touch points along the way, because I want to make sure that this is a transparent process. And I want to make sure that we know what our role is going to be from the start to the end. So as long as we're part of that implementation plan and that we're providing some feedback and input into that, then that makes me happy about this process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Go ahead.
Hi, through you, Warden. Just, I think it'd be easier for you to answer than we do digging, maybe already here, but just curious, the property rental, the 39,641, just, yeah. Is that something, I'm just curious on that. The change, like going from, I'm just looking like from 6,000 to 39,000, there's obviously a change, or I just don't know about it. That's all. I'm just curious for you to enlighten me.
Through you, Warden, to the council member, the Economic Development and Tourism Department currently operates from 2 very small offices inside of the Kamoka Wellness Center. So it is the intention that with this change, we will create more of a meeting space, a more business center approach. And so we've used a market rent average in order to calculate that and allow us to then go out to a process of looking at what would be available in terms of a location.
Okay, and then the visitor center, just I'm just worried, will that be located?
It is the same, it is basically the furnishing and leaseholds that would be required in order to establish an office, which as the DMO, we are required to basically have a tourism location. It may also afford us some access to funding to be able to look at the creation of a visit center within the realm of our organization and office.
No, and I'm glad to hear you speak of the KPI measurement. That's reassuring. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Or comments? No, seeing none, I will add that we did have the opportunity at the Budget Committee to talk with Kara more than once, you know, to clarify things. And I think if anybody has any more questions for Kara, please send them to her before next week, because we are meeting next week. And I think it was very important for Kara, you do this presentation today. So if there's no more questions, I do need a motion to accept this for information. Councillor Clark, Councillor Smibert, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next item is, I think, Chris, that's yours, and that's on the community paramedicine Waterloo Street.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Warden. Just get the presentation up on the screen. Just an update. It's been a while since we undertook the first phase of renovations on the downtown ambulance station at 340 Waterloo, and just a bit of an update on where we're at with launching the community paramedicine program out of that facility. The next phase just talks about what we're doing here. Now, this is certainly the first phase is not restricted to the areas you're going to see the pictures of today, but there are other structural upgrades to the building that are being done, including some changes to the HVAC system and plumbing and electrical that needed to be done for this building had been updated for a while. So those are being addressed as part of this phase of the renovation. The next couple of pages talk about the washrooms. You can see here all the brand new plumbing that's been installed. The middle picture is our fully accessible washroom that's on the main floor. That also has, you can't see it in this perspective, but there's a shower, sort of a full facility there. There's lockers and everything else, the same as that we have on the second floor in the building. The next slide shows you what it was like here when we moved in. You'll notice there is no women's washroom here. It was 100% men's shower change facilities. The women's washroom is kind of off this page. It's just a single bathroom. This was a fire hall built many decades ago, and you can see how our demographics have changed. We go to the next slide, which shows you we have equitable facilities here. We also have gender neutral facilities as well in this building that can be accessed with the same suite of services that are provided to the men and the women. Again, it's you can see here just as a donation, kind of small on your slide, but 25 lockers and 25 lockers. So it's an even split here for the amount of storage and facilities for our paramedics and the other folks using the building. And those folks will be the community paramedicine group, which is the next slide. You can see just we're working on these offices now, the nice bright colors that are being implemented here, trying to bring some light in from outside, inside. If any of you were in the building before it was renovated, you'll know this is a much needed upgrade to this section of the building. The next slide shows you sort of generally what's being renovated. It's about half of the second floor. I didn't show the first floor plans because it's just simply some washroom facilities on the first floor that are being upgraded. But the area to the right is the area the community paramedicine team is going to be utilizing in this building. And then to the left are our modernized washroom, shower, change room facilities. So the next page shows you our timeline here. We're a little bit behind in the timeline. Again, we were anticipating some challenges with some of the behind the scenes things that you wouldn't see until you start opening up walls, some challenges with plumbing, some challenges with electrical, HVAC that have all been rectified. And you can see here most of the remaining work to be done is really around, painting and sort of putting on the finishing touches with the project. It does take time. We are hoping to see community paramedicine to be mobilizing into this space in April and having full operational status during the first week of June. It's on the next slide. And I was just told this morning by our MLPS team here that the initial phase two consultations have begun. We presented some initial renderings and design for phase two. We'll be back to you with a report on that once we get further in that process. But that really is to do a complete renewal of the paramedic services on the first floor of the building. So the ambulance bays and all of the paramedic amenity spaces on that first floor are all in desperate need of renovation. And that's the next phase that will be undertaken. Hopefully, as we're moving forward with paramedicine, community paramedicine will be moving forward with the next phase of renovations in spring of 2025. So I'll leave it at that. Just a high level update for members of council. I'm not sure if Bill or any of the MLPS folks wanted to add anything to that, but happy to answer any questions.
All right, questions from council. Councilor Grantham. Yeah, and thanks through the warden to the counselor. We're still on budget with this. Again, we've kind of front-ended more of the sort of the internal structural works like electrical, HVAC, plumbing, and all those types of things. So this phase of the renovation will be a bigger chunk of the budget than you might think, but it's because we don't have to do that work now for phase two and beyond. So we're good on budget. A few small surprises, but nothing too out of whack. We're just behind on schedule. More than we'd hoped to have been in there a couple of months ago, but as these things tend to go, we find stuff takes time. Okay, other questions? Those unexpected things you always find, that's the one thing you can expect, that you will find some, right? That's just part of renovating a building. If there's no other questions at this time, I would ask for a mover of recommendation. Councilor Smybert, Councilor McGuire, all in favor? Carried. So the next one is paramedic services, mobile logistics. Who's starting with that?
I am, and I'm going to start by thanking you and the rest of the board. We're really lucky to have a board of Warden Brian, John Brennan, Kathy Burkhart Jessen, Mike, and Susan Stevenson, who's also a City of London councillor, because they've challenged us, the entire team, with what I call the innovation agenda. We've got 28 items on our innovative programs list of things that we're trying to do that are unique to either our service or unique to Ontario, or just no one's ever done before. And today we're responding to your request, Brian, to share more information with this council about one of those innovative programs. And each one of the programs is really designed to do all four of these things: serve the public better, make sure we reduce the cost of service delivery, invest in sustainability, and improve the employee experience. And so when Brian asked me about this, I thought, boy, the work we talk a lot about service and about saving lives, and the backbone really that I've come to understand of making sure that we're getting the service delivered properly is in logistics. And the teams come up with a really innovative solution here that is something that I think is going to serve the county and the city well for a long period of time. So Kelly, why don't I turn it over to you? And Kelly's our commander of logistics, and he's going to walk you through what the plan is, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the future.
Thanks, Bill, and through the warden to council. The MLPS team is really excited to implement this new innovative program pilot called Mobile Logistics. So the concept is that we have trained logistic technicians who will deploy in electric vehicles. They'll be able to restock ambulance and supplies where those ambulances are located. They'll make minor repairs to the vehicles, and they'll troubleshoot equipment connectivity issues. So currently in the system, those vehicles have to leave their deployment areas to come back to headquarters to have those issues addressed. So the goal is obviously to reduce the need for these crews to return to headquarters and address their issues in real time, and increase the availability of these units to respond to 911 calls where they are without having them out of service. Our logistics technicians have additional training that's been provided to them, and that will allow them to do certain repairs such as headlight repairs, scene light repairs, emergency lights, door handles, things that normally they would have to come back to a central location to have addressed. Some of the benefits, we can enhance operational efficiencies by reducing ambulance downtime. We have cost savings and sustainability by the use of electric vehicle. We can lower our overall fleet maintenance and fuel costs. We have an improved approach to our regulatory compliance. We streamline our processes for restocking and inventory control to allow us to better adhere to the Ministry of Health standards. One other benefit that we believe will be an improved staff support and morale. So providing local support to the frontline paramedics will minimize the frustration, improve job satisfaction, and foster a sense of collaboration and team culture. So the rollout of this began a soft launch last week, and the center hub is located in Strathroy and will support the county stations in Lucan, Park Hill, Glencoe, and Komoka. Coverage is 7 days a week and from 5 a.m. till 1700. If the pilot is successful, our plan is to implement this in the north end of the city and cover all remaining non-centrally deployed ambulances. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Kelly. Just the warden and I were playing ambulance trivia this morning, and he did really well. I asked him the question, what does a fully stocked ambulance cost? And he guessed somewhere in the 360,000 range. It's actually $400,000. And when you think about the costs that we have to figure out new innovative ways to do things, because the service demand is growing so fast, Brian, as you know, that to sustain and keep up with the pace of the financial pressures we're facing, we have to do these innovative things. We think that just with this pilot alone, we're going to be saving the equivalent of 2 ambulances in terms of capital. And when you look at the expenses that we have in terms of capital, of course, the largest expense is ambulances. And we put a lot of kilometers on them, and every kilometer we reduce by doing this is a huge savings for the county. Second big savings we have, of course, is human resources. Kelly's highlighted that running people in large ambulances back and forth is an expensive process, not only from a capital perspective, but from an HR perspective. That's a very expensive experience. And so this is going to save there as well. And then finally, we didn't highlight this for you, Brian, but we think we're going to be saving close to $10,000 per depot in terms of stock. And you know, that's a number that is really, really important because we're going to have one single supply going out in real time. We're not going to have the same experience with past due medicine. We're going to be able to do a better job that's going to save us at each one of our stations that we're going to mobile logistics. 10,000, is it 10,000, Adam, or is the total was 80 some thousand annually, right? So that's a big number as well. So when you add up all these savings, where I know Sue or somebody's going to say, well, what are you measuring and how you're going to know if you're successful? We're measuring just about everything we can with this pilot. We're talking about total kilometers that we're driving. We're talking about every cost savings. So by the time we get back to our board with this particular innovation part of the agenda, they're going to know whether or not they want to move forward in the north. And we think we're going to blow their doors off with how much we're able to impact the bottom line with this program. So we're really excited about it, and we'll be glad to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Go ahead, Councillor Grantham, and then Councillor Smiber.
Yeah, no, I just want to applaud the creativity that, see, that's the kind of thinking we need to be successful and save money. So I just want to applaud the creativity because I love the different look at things. So
Yeah, it was a real team effort, Warden, as you know, in terms of coming up with this. We had many ideas. We sat down and thought about how are we going to do this. We could have built a new logistics center in the north. We could have built a couple new logistics centers and all these things. And ultimately, this idea is, as far as I know, Warden, this is unique to North America. I haven't been able to find anyone else that's doing a program like this that we can copy. So we're excited to get out there, show what it can do, and then teach others and really ramp it up in the city as well.
Yeah, I would just make comment to that, Kelly, when you first brought this to the board, speaking for myself, it isn't even something I would have thought about. And so it was a completely different thinking on it. Yeah. Councillor Smiber.
Great, thank you. It's good to see these innovative solutions relating to cost savings. So to the CEO, you mentioned a bunch of numbers. So what's the projected cost savings per year? Has that been calculated roughly?
So projections, we know that. So this program isn't for the entire service. So what we're hoping to do is collect enough data that we're going to be able to show, because I also need both short, like a year is not the right thing, because the capital costs are really spread out over a number of years. So we want to be able to show this in an annual basis as you asked for. So once we get all those KPIs from this, we're only doing this for 6 months and then coming back. Sorry, let me just say it again, because there's lots of people that watch this from MLPS. It's not that we're only doing the program for 6 months. We're coming back to the board with our KPIs after 6 months. So this isn't going to be like a 18-month trial, 24-month trial. This is 6 months. We think we're going to be able to prove what those annual savings will be across the entire service as opposed to just this select area. It is really great in this select area. Kelly and I were mapping out the traffic flow of how logistics is going to work and how it's going to work with an electric vehicle to get, you know, in terms of range and everything else. And we think we have the perfect scenario both here and in the north part of London to show that the savings are going to be astronomical. But no, so I don't have a final number. I have a number that's estimated in my head, but I'll be happier to give you that number in 6 months.
Other questions? No other questions for this time? All right, we have a recommendation in front of us, or will have. There we go, to receive for information. Moved by Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor McGuire. All in favor? Carried. Next item is, I believe, Dirk, that's yours, and that is Thames Center official plan amendment.
Thank you. Through the warden. This is amendment number 32 would essentially permit the conversion of agricultural land to allow for a new aggregate operation. It's a 45 hectare property. Approximately 21 hectares of it would be subject to the extraction. Most of the rest of the property is a fairly large woodland, and that area would not be touched. It's at the corner of Dundas and Elgin Road, kind of behind the Huron Tractor, if you're familiar with that area. So planning report, or this report goes over the matter from the county's perspective, and attached to it are a local planning report and additional information. So I guess in summary of the planning analysis, the provincial planning statement, as you know and have heard before, and then the county's official plan and the local official plan mirror the language. They essentially allow for aggregate extraction close to markets, et cetera, without the demonstration of need. It requires the rehabilitation of land to an agricultural after use unless there's a pond, and in this case, it would be a pond. So in the end, the property will look like a large pond with a woodland on it. The county has not received written submissions regarding this amendment. However, during the local process, area residents did express concerns related to noise, dust, on-site operational matters. As you know, the Aggregate Resource Act, ARA licensing through the MNRF, there's a parallel process, parallel to the planning process. And that site plan that ultimately could be approved by the Ministry of Natural Resources can deal with those sort of operational matters. So in the end, I am recommending approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions from council? No questions? Councillor Manders.
I don't know who can answer this through your ward. I'm just curious on the change of use then on the valuation and impact. I'm just curious how that works, or is that at the time of changing this, and this is impact then determines that? Because I'd assume that that'd be quite a change in value of the property and how that works.
Dirk.
I believe the reference is related to some of the concerns that the neighbors had, and it's really, I think their concerns, I wasn't at the meeting, just reading the notes, was respect to the impact of a nearby aggregate operation on their property.
Sorry, I'm talking about impact, like about assessment of the property, reassessing the property now under a new use, which I realize isn't probably yourself to answer that. I don't know, like I meant impact as far as the value that you're changing the use of that property. So I assume then when we do that, that impact is notified, and then the value, I'm just curious how that works. But maybe no one can answer that. I don't know.
Go ahead, Dirk.
I can't answer that, but I can look into it and get back to you on sort of the impact process. And then there also are, through the ARA licensing, there are also payments to the municipality, et cetera, for based on the tonnage and whatnot. So I can, through an email, look into that and get back.
Yeah. My understanding of previous conferences, there was with aggregate and gravel pits and the creation of them and the value in the ground is an interesting conversation with them. I'm curious how that rolls out. So.
Okay. Other questions on this? Seeing none, we have a recommendation in front of us. Moved by Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor Smybert. All in favor? Carried. Next is a proposed plan of subdivision in Strathroy Caradoc. And Dirk, that's yours as well.
Thank you, through the warden. And as you've seen on your agenda, there are two related files. And when I reread this last night, maybe didn't do the best job of explaining it, but in the end, it is Westdale Development Corporation undertaking a residential development in Mount Bridges. Just because of the timing and some of the work that they were doing on the private side of things, they ended up bringing forward two applications, one that was applied for and draft plan approved a number of years ago, and then a more recent draft plan approval. However, as they worked with the municipality on engineering, stormwater, hydro-G, some of those issues, they've basically amended, they are seeking a major amendment to the plan, the existing plan that's already been approved once, and then the new plan. In the end, the two will be developed as one development. The engineering is being undertaken cohesively, if you will, for both files. So there's a little bit of a kind of an order of operation thing here, just because of the two separate planning files. I did attached to both those reports are the local reports. I would just note that Strathroy Caradoc Council, well, there's been a fair amount of work at the local level on the sort of engineering side of this. Strathroy Caradoc Council has supported both the new application and the changes to the previous application. There are draft plan conditions that would satisfy the Conservation Authority, in this case, the Lower Thames. related to stormwater drainage and development near the hazard lands, and then also the municipality. Again, a lot of water balance and stormwater matters were dealt with. So the provincial planning statement, and then again, the planning documents do seek to focus new development on full municipal services like this is proposed. And in particular, the red line amendment, it is bringing forward a more dense development. They are making the lots a little smaller and fitting more in this same area. So I am recommending approval. The first file is the SC 2201, and then the second file is again the same recommendation, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? No questions? We have a recommendation, a motion in front of us. Councillor Brennan. And seconded by Councillor McGuire. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Your second one is a major red line revision.
Yeah, so basically everything I just said, and this is just the other property. This is the southern property that is being, you have county council a number of years ago approved, and now it's a major red line. So same recommendations.
Any questions for Dirk on this? No, seeing none. We have a recommendation on the screen. Councillor Smyber, Councillor Grantham, all in favor? Carried. Our next one is new traffic signals on Middlesex County roads, and Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and just like to take this opportunity just to remind those watching and those here in council chambers about our process for determining where we recommend installing traffic signals. One of the main things I like to remind everyone is that at least in Middlesex County, we have never, and again this year, we have not found a location where traffic signals would have prevented collisions of the type that would be reduced with traffic signals. And also remind everyone that installing traffic signals where they're not warranted can actually lead to more serious crashes, collisions, and fatalities. So that's an important thing to remember. The other one, and I think it's just the nature of our rural environment, is that we didn't have any locations that would warrant traffic signals simply for the movement of pedestrians back and forth across the county road. I also want to remind everyone that although the recommendation that you'll see today is not recommending any additional traffic signals in the county, we are still moving forward with the two previously approved signalized intersections, the one at Melbourne and Glendon Drive, and another one at Longwoods and Carriage Road. Both of those have some preliminary work completed, and we're hoping to see both of those up and operational by early summer at the latest. So I'll just quickly go through the intersections we've looked at and just to give some background. The first on the report is Longwoods and Gideon Drive. That's right in Delaware. We had some conversations about whether or not the improvements that we're making at Five Corners, our new roundabout, and also the city's improvements at Oxford Street West and Gideon Drive might have increased some traffic flow through this intersection. Our understanding, really our recommendation, is that we look at this one again in the very near future. Some of that construction, especially the one in the west end of the city of London, likely had a negative impact or lessened the amount of traffic that was traveling through this area. So we'll look at that one again likely in 2025. Ilderton Road and Narren Road is one we look at regularly. A great success story for us, shows the value of enhanced rumble strips. As far as I know, we have not had a collision at this intersection since those enhanced rumble strips have gone in, at least not one where someone has missed or failed to recognize a stop condition. We're very happy with the performance there, but again, traffic volumes there are pretty level, so they have not met the recommendation for traffic signal installation at this point. The next one is Plover Mills Road and Highbury Avenue North, which is right in Bryanston. Again, this is one we look at every few years. Again, the traffic is pretty stable here. We haven't seen much growth, so it's a little too early there to recommend traffic signals. The next one is Napperton Road and Pike Road. This is Natalie Metcalf. This is one that we'll look at again when the construction is fully complete. We'll look at it next year because the bridge will be out, hopefully later this summer, south of this intersection while we do that bridge replacement. But after the county completes its reconstruction work on that road section in 2026, we'll have this, have another look at this one in the fall of that year to see if it warrants traffic signal installation. But we tend to look at these ones, these intersections that are in close proximity where we're doing reconstruction works. And the last one that we've heard some comments about from some of the local residents is at Elgin Road and Gore Road. Again, lots of commercial traffic here. We see aggregate resources in the area. So we do see quite a few gravel trucks moving around in proximity to this intersection. We don't see the traffic growth here. And the other one that we look at when we're determining whether or not traffic signals would be of a benefit is delays to cross traffic. So are the trucks sitting at this intersection waiting to turn? We're not seeing that here either. So all of those sort of metrics for reviewing traffic signal installations were not met. So the report's here for information. We're not recommending any new traffic signals in our 2025 capital program, other than the two we already talked about. And happy to answer any questions.
Questions from council on this? Councillor McMillan.
Know that we're not up for, when you're talking about the County Road 73 and the County Road 25, which is Elgin and Gore. Once this new pit opens, you'll be monitoring that, because that intersection's at the top of a hill going east to west. The sight lines are not maybe as good as if you're going the other direction. It's just a comment.
I'll just respond through the chair to the councillor because this is good information. These are not one and done, any of these. These are ones that we'll look at again, either in the very near future or, a couple of years down the line. Traffic doesn't grow that quickly in our experience. So most of these ones we'll look at, like Nairn and Ilderton Road. We weren't directly asked to look at that intersection, but it's one that we review every few years just because we are seeing growth in and around Ilderton and sort of the north part of the city of London. So we're seeing traffic start to press up that way. So it's one that we're looking at on a regular basis. But Gore and Elgin Road and many of the intersections around Thames Center, we're just seeing traffic pressures continue to grow anywhere across the whole region. So,
Councillor Grantham, and then Councillor McGuire.
And Councillor McGuire may jump in on my comment that it makes it. At first, I didn't understand the need for the warrants, but I do understand them now. But question about the role of stoplights, traffic lights, and slowing down traffic. And I think specifically because I will certainly support when you need it for Gideon and Longwoods. And I know that Middlesex Center has requested some kind of a crosswalk up on the hill. And I think of Wardsville and those areas where it's just a straight stretch and they may not warrant a traffic light. But my question is, do they play any role in slowing down traffic? Because I think of the small areas, going down Longwoods Road, Wardsville, Melbourne, Delaware, would they play any role, even though they don't warrant it by the numbers, in helping to slow down traffic in those small communities?
Yeah, through the warden to Councillor Grantham, one of the challenges that we have with rural road safety in particular is providing drivers with a sense of certainty when they're out on our roads. So when you create an environment where there is an uncertain indication. So for example, and engineers love to throw this out here, but that's not entirely true. But anecdotally, you say if someone sees a yellow light, 50% of the people will slow down because they're expecting to stop, and 50% of the people will hammer on the gas and try and make it through the light. In my opinion, I think it's much more weighted towards people speeding up. Unfortunately, we're living in an environment where people tend not to be as patient as they used to be. So when we create some of these situations where you're adding in a traffic signal, there's better ways to slow down vehicles. And we've had some discussions, between ourselves, indicating to people that they're in a settlement area is a challenging thing to undertake in rural Ontario. But we can do better things for much less cost, I would say, that have a better impact on drivers, giving them visual cues or in an area where they need to slow down. So being mindful about where we place our speed limits, where the speed limit reductions happen, and where we put those in relation to built up environment, doing more about beautification, roadside improvements that we kind of lost. We had Communities in Bloom was a very strong organization years ago, and they've kind of moved away into the background. We used to see a lot more requests. We have a process in the county that allows people to come and ask us to do gardening, do landscaping, provide sort of unique signage, those kind of visual cues to people that are coming into these settlement areas. Whereas just putting a traffic signal and, the lonely traffic signal in the middle of town doesn't really do that for anyone. You want to slow people at the periphery, not at these intersections at the middle of town. They're there for people to make sure that, if people are having a hard time making a turn onto the busy county road, they're sitting, waiting. We don't want people to make a dangerous choice to pull out into traffic because they've been waiting for 5, 8, 10 minutes to try and make a turn. Traffic signals really help us move vehicles around in that sense. But as strictly as a way to slow traffic, we're talking about infrastructure that costs around $500,000 to install and many thousands of dollars to maintain. So we have to be careful about using the right tools in the right location that are the most effective. And in my opinion, traffic signal really isn't an effective way to slow traffic. I think we can do better things on our road network.
Councilor McGuire, then Councilor Mayhew.
There we go. Thank you, Warden. So through you to Director Trainee. In Strathroy, 2nd Street is becoming increasingly busy, and I know we've discussed this in the past, so I'm just kind of looking for an update. But there is a new development going on the corner of Head Street and 2nd Street, which has now caused more conversation in my world, as that's kind of my area where I reside. So within the OTMs, the Ontario Traffic Manuals, which the engineers like to go to all the time, and they're supposed to, when we're doing traffic counts, are we doing it like on a 24-hour basis and averaging it? Because particularly on 2nd Street, it seems that with the Molnar Park getting out at 3:30 or 4, and school getting out at 2:30 and late buses coming through at 3:30. So we're having these early morning and mid-afternoon type congestion problems, both at Wright Street going into the industrial park, and then out at Head Street as they are coming and going. And then it's extending up to where the high school is as people are trying to circumvent. And now we're going to have another establishment there with a mall and high density housing. So will this be relooked at? And with that, are we getting close to numbers that are going to require something? Or are there other traffic measures that will be suggested? I'm just looking for an update. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, and not a problem at all. And through the word to Councilor McGuire, that 2nd Street corridor, I would say from Center Road out to Hickory Drive is one that we're watching very closely, because you put it very well. There's a number of challenges along that section of road, and making the right choice about where we help move traffic through it, whether through signalization or other means, is something we're trying to look at more comprehensively. And there's a secondary plan that's south of 2nd Street with the extension of Adair Drive by the Gemini and by the school. We've got, your prime industrial area at the north section of Strathroy that uses another intersection than this Head Street. The other thing that we didn't really mention is that the traffic signals at Metcalfe and Head Street have now made it easier for people to use that as an alternative route to get around downtown. We know some of the traffic snarls that we see on Caradoc Street through that section, right in the heart of Strathroy proper. So we're looking at all of those things on that section. I know you have a relatively new director of public works, and we've been chatting, and we do have a meeting fairly soon to talk about. We meet regularly to chat about road safety, but it's one that we're looking at in association with Vanderwerf as well, looking at planning applications as they come online. I think council may or may not remember, but when we made the recommendation to move forward with the traffic signals in the past, there's been times where we know there's development coming online, and it will make it almost sure the next time we looked at that traffic signal, it would meet the warrants. That's where council steps in and approves things that may not currently meet what you're talking about in the OTM, but that section of Second Street is on our radar and challenging. And even where it extends out, it becomes Mullaferry on the other side. I know on Adelaide, we're seeing more traffic demands on Pike Road. And as Mullaferry gets constructed all the way to Kerwood Road, which we're undertaking the second half of that this year on behalf of Eileen Metcalf, we're going to see a lot of growth of traffic along that sort of northern side of the town of Strathroy. So it's well put. We are looking at it, and we're trying to look at it more comprehensively than sort of picking off the individual intersections. So stay tuned. We'll likely have more to discuss about that, likely sometime later this year. Yep.
Councillor Mayhew.
Thank you very much, Chair Warden. Chris, there's nothing in this report that I don't agree with, including your concern of traffic lights in rural areas as well. But while we're on the subject of lights, the evaluation of traffic lights based on traffic count leave out some intersections in rural areas that have an infamy of events or a history. And I've always been an advocate of the red and amber flashing lights suspended from such rural intersections. This type of stimulus does not and will prevent a good percentage of accidents. I have seen them in Lambton County. I've seen them in Elgin County at intersections that had some notoriety, and it greatly reduced the number of collisions. They're low maintenance. They do not change the driving characteristics or paths. People that are heading east to west or west to east, they still have the right of way. People that are driving north to south, it's just an additional stimulus. We have all seen some of the recent videos posted on the Longwoods Road journey, where some of these lights, both in daylight and nighttime, would perhaps correct some of the shortcomings of drivers. I know we can't change driving habits, but we're leaving out some of the lower traffic count areas that may benefit immensely from an element of light as a stimulus. These installations would be more cost effective. We could do more problematic intersections. They're lower maintenance. Rather than just leaving out some of these areas, why is there an aversion to not putting something like that up?
Well, through the warden and Councillor Mayhew, we'll go back a little bit. I'll talk about this from sort of two different perspectives. We talk a little bit about the Ontario Traffic Manual and where flashing lights have a place and a purpose and a reason for their installation. And the current sort of engineering theory is that they're meant to be in locations where it is difficult to see an intersection because of the geometry of the road. So they are in locations where sight distances are such that you may be challenged as a driver to be able to see that road without some additional indication of the location of an intersection where traffic may be crossing. That being said, Middlesex County in particular, and in fact, through one of my recommendations, probably almost 10 years ago now, removed flashing lights from all of our intersections because time and again, we were seeing fatalities at these intersections. Time and again, we were being told that the reason people were having these really tragic types of collisions was because they assumed a flashing light meant the other direction was required to stop. And it broke my heart every time I saw someone misconstrue what a flashing light over an intersection means. It speaks back to our conversation a few minutes ago about certainty to drivers. So while I appreciate the fact that a flashing light may draw more attention to an intersection, I do believe that in general, drivers don't understand what they mean. And my engineering opinion and my experience in this county would be such that I would be challenged to make a recommendation to install a flashing light at a four-way intersection with good sight lines in every direction, simply because it may create a situation where someone may be killed because they didn't understand what that meant. So it's very challenging from where I sit to say that that's a means by which we can improve safety at those intersections. We've got really good records and proof that rumble strips really create a way and means by which we can affect driver behavior, especially distracted drivers from missing stop signs. I'll reiterate the fact that there's not an intersection in this county that's inherently dangerous. People follow the rules of the road, people stop. There's no reason why we can't have a perfectly safe road network in Middlesex County. And I would say as well, if there was a dangerous intersection in this county, we would have addressed it immediately. And we do watch and patrol all of our roads on a very regular basis and take immediate measures when we find unsafe circumstances. So I know some of the things that you've spoken to Councillor Mayhew, and we continue to watch those areas, and there's challenges that we have with trying to make those areas safer. And we'll continue to watch and monitor and make modifications. But my experience and my opinion is that a flashing light in intersection is not a way to improve safety, and that's why it's not been reviewed. And part of that is at the direction of this council, recommendation of this council from almost 10 years ago now. So let's leave it at that.
Go ahead.
I think we all are aware of Colin Grantham, Councillor Grantham, myself, the ones in Lambton. Mike would be aware of some in Elgin County, and it's at the risk of simplifying driving habits today, it's hard to fix the shortcomings of an inadequate driver. And stimulation sometimes is required to get your mind off boredom and monotony. And other counties have found them effective in reducing collisions. And I respect what you say, Chris, but I'm still an advocate of those flashing lights that indicate to stop in one direction, and for the driver to be more defensive, to proceed with caution.
Thank you. Any other questions at this time? Councillor Brennan?
Not a question, just a comment. The question raised about putting stoplights in to reduce speed. There's traffic lights at Medway and Hyde Park, Medway and Wonderland, Medway and Arva, Medway and Adelaide Street, Medway and Clark Road. And I will assure you, the minimum of one car a week getting towed away for excessive speed. They don't slow down. I travel Hyde Park and Medway constantly, and I will see a minimum of 3 to 4 cars go through the red light in Hyde Park every day. They come up, as Mr. Trainee has said, they see the yellow light, the foot goes on the gas pedal to the floor, and by the time they reach the intersection, the light's red, and they just go by anyways. A lot of these incidents are strictly driver error, and how we educate them, I don't know. I think everything's been tried, and but I just don't, you know, we put traffic lights up, it doesn't slow them down, it doesn't stop accidents. I know my boys being on the volunteer fire department are at each one of those intersections on Medway Road at least once a year at those traffic lights, at least once a year. And usually the accidents are more severe because someone hasn't slowed down for the red light and someone pulls out and they get hit at a car going 80 to 100 clicks hitting them. So caution is what we wish for, because sometimes it doesn't always solve the problem. It only enhances it. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments on this? Seeing none, we have a recommendation to receive this for information. Moved by Councillor McGuire. Sorry, Councillor Brennan, all in favor? Carried. You have the next one as well, Chris. Governance and Administration Center. Catchy title, catchy title.
Catchy title, as we try to get catchy titles around here. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And it's been a while since we've had an update on the and it's the information's kind of come out in different ways about our new administration building and our new home that we're hoping to get to tender in the next month or so. So I thought it was time to have a bit of an update on what's going on. And you can see I've included the most up-to-date as part of this report. And we won't go through them. There's not a formal presentation, but just for your information, a number of slides with some renderings of what our council chambers and what the entranceway is going to look like. And then some of our draft engineering plans for actually the layout of the building. So please have a look through those, and happy to answer your questions at any point in time. It doesn't have to be today around this chamber, but they're certainly out there for everyone to look at and review. We wanted to talk a little bit more today and get some direction from council about sustainability and green energy on the new admin building and our what I'd like to call, and Bill may roll his eyes a bit, our Middlesex campus at the south end of Adelaide Street with our MLPS headquarters and the proposed new admin building. Much of the work we've done, that design work we've done to date around the outside of these buildings to provide amenity areas that all of our staff can use, paramedics and county administration staff can use in order to enjoy the site to its fullest. Right now, it's a big berm and a parking lot. We're hoping to change that into an administration building that's attractive, and then have some amenity areas outside that all of us can use and enjoy for many years to come. But in order to keep our healthy planet for many years to come, we are looking at different ways to reduce our footprint on this earth. And there's a commentary letter from Matter that they provided to us to talk about all the things we're doing within the building in order to try and make it more energy efficient. Lots of use of natural light. We're trying to look at different ways to reduce the energy usage in the building. And some other things. In fact, just recently, over the last couple of days, even had some conversations about providing some protection for birds to reduce bird collisions with the building by providing some above and beyond measures on the structure to reduce those types of collisions and injuries to wildlife. So one thing we did look at and talk about was alternative energy sources on the new building. And just because of the design of the building itself, it doesn't really suit itself for alternative energy to the building on its own. But we are considering reviewing the use of solar power generation on the whole campus for the whole site. Part of the construction of the new building requires us to upgrade the transformer for the site, which requires some changes in the MLPS HQ site in order to reconnect them to the electrical source. Excuse me. So we are trying to make some provisions in some of our electrical design, that would make the building, both the new building and the existing building, future-proof with regards to connecting to other sources of energy, including solar. But certainly not my area of expertise, nor of Matters, our architectural consultant on the project. So we do know, and we are aware, and Middlesex Center was successful, amongst others, of potential areas of funding that could be used to help us pay for some of these initiatives that go above and beyond what we would normally do for a building of this nature. So there's a recommendation that we look for a consultant to prepare us basically sort of an assessment of the site and whether or not solar, or what type of solar we could implement as part of our power generation for the entire campus. And then that would be used to form the basis for an application for funding to build some type of solar energy program or project. And the intention would be this would go along with the construction of the building. So it wouldn't be with just the new administration and governance building. It wouldn't be related directly to MLPS or anything they're doing at their headquarters, but it would be a site-wide improvement. And we would see that sort of come to fruition, sort of in tandem with the construction of the new county building. So That recommendation is there, but I'd be happy to answer any questions about any of the drawings or renderings that have been provided, or any more information about any of the energy savings that we're looking at for the new building at this point.
Thank you. Questions for Chris on this? I would ask you, Chris, if you were to hire a consultant on this, it would be for maybe not even doing that in a new build, but at any point down the road where there was funding for it, correct?
Yeah, to the word, yeah, exactly. We just want to have something in hand, almost like a shovel-ready project where we could do something to enhance the entire site, wouldn't be locked into us or slow us down with what we're trying to build for the new governance administration building.
Okay. Questions from council? No questions in this update? We have a recommendation to receive it for information and also on the consultant piece as well. Moved by Councilor Smibert, seconded by Councilor Mayhew. In favor? Carried. Thank you. Our next item is correspondence, I believe. And yeah, so rather than going through each one, I would say all items from 9D1 to 9D18. So comments, questions, remarks on any of those items? Seeing none? I'm looking for a mover for our correspondence. Councilor Brennan, Councilor Smibert, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. We need a motion to committee of a whole rise at 2:51. Councilor Mayhew, Councilor McGuire, all in favor? Carried. We have no closed session, so bylaws.
We have bylaw number 7317, a bylaw to authorize an agreement with the Corporation of the Municipality of North Middlesex through the Middlesex County Loan Program. And bylaw number 7318, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the February 11th, 2025 meeting of County Council.
Moved by first and second, Councilor Grantham and Councilor McMillan, all in favor? Carried. And third and final. Councilor Brennan, Councilor Clark, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Announcements, next Tuesday is the budget meeting. And then Tuesday, March 11th. And March 25th, is that for the final meetings? I just have the dates. I don't have what it's for.
That's just our next week.
Oh, just our regular council meetings. All right. Nothing else? Move to adjourn. Councilor Mayhew and Councilor McGuire, all in favor? Carried. Thanks, everyone.